I bought her a wedding dress. She had the integrity. Hey everybody, welcome back. Today's topic is going to be about toxic friends. So there are three main people I'm going to be talking about that friendship that I did have and what it was like, what happened, all that. I met all three of these girls in college in Berkeley. Two main girls, I met them my first year of Berkeley. The first 2 to 3 years, the friendship was fine. There were no red flags. I think over time, people do change. I know I have changed. The two friendships I really adored in college, it did prevent me to, I think, just even making friendships that were outside, whether it was at school or through church. But I kind of cut myself off, and that's who I was at the time. It is what it is. I can't go back and change it. And you know what? I wouldn't change anything for that because I think it taught me a lot. But this is where it went downhill. It went downhill with both of these friendships the last year of my college. Downhill. Now, the one friend does relate to the previous video of the church and where I said that person got involved and I was very disappointed. Also, she was leaving the country. She was going to be moving. She was going to be doing something else with her career. We would have distanced ourselves anyways. My last semester of Berkeley, it was amazing. I have to give credit to my professor, Dr. B, and my classmates. So my last semester at Berkeley, for my major that I was doing, we have to basically present our final project. I decided to do electronic and ambiance piece, and I had an idea of what I wanted to do, so I had to start recording, and also I implemented a video which I also had to start recording. So it took me from like end of July till December to create my project, and through this whole process I have to give majority 100% to my professor for walking me through and for critiquing and giving me great feedback in order to learn, to grow, and to make my sound better, and as well as my classmates. Most people who don't know me, but there is a reason why I don't post a lot of musical videos, because I'll be honest, I've had a confidence issue since I was a young child when it came to my voice and to singing and just music in general. Now I'm starting to be proud of my music and proud of my singing. And so that's the reason why I don't like sharing, but I didn't really get involved too much other than my ensembles that I really enjoyed that I had to take. And even with that, the concerts that we had, I didn't ask my friends to come to those because either they were busy and I didn't want to bother them, and I know that they had other projects, or I wasn't confident. And these two friends, I was with them through the thick and thin. And when I was friends with them, that toxic friend, both of them, they had a lot of concerts. I went to them. The one girl graduated about 9 months before me. She was hand selected for her major to showcase her music actually in the BPC Performance Center. And I was there, and she didn't have the confidence that she had at the time, and I was there to support and just really being there as a friend. So it was my last semester. She was also engaged, and I was really excited for her. I was helping her find wedding dresses, and actually eventually she found her wedding dress, and essentially I I bought her a wedding dress. I gave her almost the same amount of money of how much the dress cost, and it was like between $400 to $600 because it was a designer, but it was used once, and she bought it. She bought her dream dress, and technically I paid for it. So there's the red flag. She was supposed to be one of her bridesmaids, and I bought the whole bridal shower, including her mother and grandmother's gift stuff to make a gift bag, and I already bought it in advance because I knew I was graduating and I didn't know how soon I would be working. So I bought everything in advance because I like to plan things. Anyways, just remember that part because it will be important for later in the story. So it was my last semester and I was creating my final project, and for the first time in my life I was proud of my music, and I think my professor and my classmates really showed me how to love your music and the things that you create. That's why we're here at Berkeley, and for the first time in my life confident of my music. It was like on a Wednesday, like my last class of the semester, and I asked my very close, friends to please come and watch this performance. Like, it's only like 2 hours out of your time. So I asked her to come to my senior performance, and I also asked my other close friends who helped me move from that other story, and they're husband and wife, and they have a small child. He's also in school too. He's supposed to have church rehearsal that night, but he told the church leader, hey, like, I have an important performance I need to go to, and they allowed him to go. And I asked my close friend at the time, like, definitely she'll come. And she's like, oh no, I can't. I have church rehearsal. Like, no, I can't. No, that's priority. And I was kind of sad because it was the first time I was proud of my music and confident to showcase. And when I told my other friend, because he knew that girl, he's like, we're in the same church band. Like, we're both in the same rehearsal. She could have asked and they would have let her go. And he was like, what? That's just an excuse. So I was a little sad. First time, like, my friends, my family, my parents were there. They're like, wow, that I'm so proud of you. Like, actually, your music is really good. And my friends, they're very honest and they will say if it's good or not. Actually, even my professors, they're like, you did this? You didn't have anybody helping you. I was so proud. They're like, you did this? You sure you didn't cheat? And I was like, no, actually, I got help from my professor, but like in class, but that's it. Because like, oh man, I was working on that every day and I was so proud. But yeah, even my professors and just everybody, like, we were just so supportive and so proud. And yeah, I will say, like, I was a very supportive friend to both of these girls and always there for them. And they would give me advice and I would look up to them because they were older than me and they're from different countries. And what I really didn't like about them is, like, well, that's not from the United States. If you're younger, they see you as like, oh, little baby, and like, oh, you're so cute. And like, I'm like, you're only like a year or two older than me. And I was still friends with these, even with the girl that I was disappointed with that left the United States. I was still like somewhat in contact with her. I went back home, actually in this exact room. No joke. Phone calls that happened. It was January 2020. So I was back home for 2 weeks and then I was going to move by myself to LA, and I prayed about it. I actually prayed about it months and months before I graduated. God was like, go. told my friend, the one that was getting married, she's like, yeah, if God tells you, you know, that you can go, you should go. And I guess she and the other toxic friend who left, I guess the other girl told the girl that left, like, oh yeah, Angel's going to be moving to California. And she got pissed off. She's like, why is she moving to LA? Well, you know, because this and this is lined up. And you know what? She got confirmation that God told her to go. And she was, according to the other girl, she was upset. And the other girl told me, like a day or two later, I was supposed to have a phone call with her. And she called me, and her attitude was totally different. She was like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy for you. I'm so glad you're going to LA. Oh, you're my baby. My baby is growing up. You're going. And in the back of my head, I'm like, you are a liar. I had discernment. God gave me discernment and wisdom, and like, don't bring it up, because basically it's not gonna be good if you bring it up. And then also, I kind of already knew that the friendship was just distancing. So I was like, you know what? No, I'm not gonna create drama. So I moved to LA. And I stay with a family friend, which I also have to give a shout out because they've done a lot for me, like the whole family. But I was staying at their house, which is a little outside of LA. And then, you know, I'm in communications with the girl that is engaged, okay? I'm gonna call her T. She's still, I think, back in Boston. Fiance's finishing up his last year of college. T, she calls me and she's like, hey, have you booked your flight yet for my wedding? So her wedding is in the DR, okay, in the Dominican Republic. And because that's where her husband's from. So it's February. Her wedding is until like July or August. And even my mom's like, no, don't buy a ticket. It's too early, all right? 5 to 6 months is too far. No. And she's like, oh no, you should, because like, you know, I bought mine and like they're really good prices. For some odd reason, something in my heart was telling me not to buy the ticket as well. I bought my bridesmaid's dress. I blessed her with the money to buy her wedding dress, because actually from my deep heart, I wanted to bless her and like give it as a wedding gift. I got hired in March by the studio. And then 2 weeks later, we get shut down. And I moved out of my family friend's home and into the temporary house that I was staying at. So I was stuck in a room smaller than here for like straight a month. I didn't go outside because like I can't go anywhere. So it really took a toll on my mental health. And I think for most people it did. It took a toll on everybody's mental health, and especially mine. It enhanced a lot of stuff. I was telling her this, and then she's like, oh, you know, you can't allow those thoughts to come in. Have strength over those evil thoughts. This is really serious. Basically, like, to get over it. And she didn't think mental health was, almost like she didn't believe it. There was one day I was on the phone with her, and she told me it was around the time when there was a lot of racist comments against Asian community, and then as well as the George Floyd and her fiance. Quote, this is not from her fiance, but from her mouth. Yeah, you know, I was really hungry for like just Asian food in general. And she's like, oh, I miss it so much, but couldn't because like the restaurants, everything was shut down. So she told her fiance, oh, let's go to the Asian market and pick up some stuff. And he's like, no, we're not going to the Asian market. Everything is shut down. It's because of the Asian people. She told me that, and I was like, you're kidding me. You're kidding me. You think that you can get COVID from going to the Asian market. Oh. Wow. Okay. Racist. And I told my mom, she was pissed off. And I think from that night, my mental health really just went downhill. All right, health is connected to our mind is connected to our body, right? When I told my mom, we found a Christian therapist, and she was a blessing. And I highly encourage you, if you know someone or you're going through something, or find a therapist. So I got a Christian therapist, and I told her, you know, things that are going on. So I was kind of already discouraged by this friend. She was like telling me what to do. Now, if you forcefully tell me what to do, I like to do the opposite. I don't like to listen. She was trying to tell me like to read this, do this, like a disciple-y of her following up. It wasn't for her to follow up because she cared about me. And she's like, did you do any of the things I told you to do? And I was like, no. And she's like, why not? And I was like, because I don't want to. She, at that point, I don't think saw me as a friend, but as like a little sheep. And I didn't like that, because like we started out as friends. And then I was telling my therapist, and she's like, yeah, this is a little questionable. And I was just kind of feeling frustrated and a little upset, because she didn't respect me. Like when I needed her, she wasn't there for me. So there was one day I sat her down, and I basically decided like not to be friends with her. You were always late. You were never there for me when I actually needed help. And I was there for you when you needed someone to be there at your concert because you were feeling so insecure. But I just wanted you to be at my concert for support. And then she was blaming me like, oh, you're doing the same thing like you did with your other friend, how you cut her off, and just like, I'm right, you're wrong, and using scripture against me. In any friendship or in anything, it doesn't matter who's right, who's wrong. It's just like, I'm opening up of how I really feel, and basically you have no consideration for really anybody. And I'm just like, I don't want to deal with that. Being friends or in any relationship is balance. You both have to put in the work, not just one and slacking off. No. And so she's like, you're a mean girl, Angel. You are not an angel. You are mean. And she wouldn't even let me talk of like what I had to say. She kept cutting me off. And I'm like, girl, I let you talk for like the first 40 minutes. It's my turn to say what I need to say and to express. I'm feeling this way because maybe like you behave this way all the time. She just got really mad, really angry. It wasn't good. And you know what? Don't cut me off. No, I'm speaking. And after our friendship broke off, she asked for two things. So we were in a group together in college, like a club, and we bought a camera, a video camera. All of us, okay, as a group. And most of the time I contributed to the group. But then when it came to buying this camera, then she decides to chip in like whatever, like 400, 500, I don't know, 900. I put in like 200. It wasn't even, can I have the camera back? She's like, can I have the camera since I paid majority for it? I didn't respond, and she was like, oh, my fiance will meet you in LA because he moved to LA, so he will be waiting for you to, you know, pick up the camera. And I told this to my other friend who knew of her, but I told her like the situation, like, yo, she DM'd me on Instagram and also through her fiance's account and demanding for the camera. And my friend's like, she wants the camera back. She needs to give back her your wedding dress, because technically it's yours because you paid for it. And I was like, but I didn't respond. And then like 2 weeks or whatever before her wedding, because I invested my money. So she messaged me and she's like, oh, can I also have all the goodie bags? And I was like, girl, you didn't pay for any of it. Why would I give that to you? Like, why do you think I'm that nice? No, I ain't gonna do that unless I'm gonna bless you, of course. She had the integrity, because she thinks, basically claiming it, that it's hers, and it's not. My mom, my close friend's mom, my close friend, and my friend from Chicago, so I told them about this situation. My close friend's mom, she knows that I am genuine when I do give gifts, but she didn't know the extent, and I told her that I bought a dress. And she's like, you did what? She was like, what? Why would you do that? Also, I was like, yeah, I also like bought gift goodie bags, to create. And she's like, oh yeah, my mom was pissed off. Now Z, she was just, I think just as her personality, she gets away with things that she wants, and that kind of persuasive and, no offense, but a little manipulative. She's a songwriter, for example, but she doesn't really know how to like produce. She'll make friends with people and then she'll just ask and they'll do it for her. Yeah, so she would get away with things that she wanted, and all her friends would produce the music. I even did her videography and some of her pictures, and yeah, I ignored her like. Now, the third person who is toxic, here we go. Again, I met her in college. She's like, again, 2 or 3 years older than me. She's not from the United States. She is from Eastern Europe, but she has a certain personality where it's very forward, to a point that for some people, I think most people, it can come across rude, and she knows what she likes. And there were few guys that I think found her very attractive, but once they started to get to know her, they would say not very nice things. And for me, I like to give the benefit of the doubt, like give people chances. There was one time I was kind of rude to her because in some ways I was influenced by those two girls, and they said something and I was like, oh, that's what I think of her. And it was to a point that, yeah, I was in the wrong, and she confronted me. I was working at the booking office and she had to come in to book. She was like straight up like, why are you so rude and mean? Like, we are all, siblings in Christ. And then from there we made up. She has a very strong opinion and very strong and confident in what she believes in and what she thinks. If you disagree, basically there may be a little bit of a dispute. And it's just, sometimes it's not worth your time of disputing with other people. But she will stand hold of her ground and her belief. People find like not a fan of her. So actually, she was the one that ratted me out about the church video. I'm gonna call her B. So B, I was living in LA. Actually, this happened between August and September. In LA, I said, okay, if you ever come and visit LA, let me know, would love to hang out with you and maybe show you a few places. So she arrives in LA, and remember, LA is a minimum of 3 million people in population. It is a lot, just in the city of Los Angeles. So, a mile down the road, honey, that will take you 20 minutes, all right? Here, it takes me, what, less than 5 minutes? So she texts me and she gets to LA. And I told her before, like, yes, we'll meet up, but make sure you make your itinerary and you do your research of where you want to go and whatever. So she's like, oh, do you have any recommendations of where to stay? I said, no, not really. So I pick her up and she judged me, okay? So I was working. I was also in band rehearsal, okay? Just letting you know, all right? And also I had a show that week, so I'm kind of busy and stressed out. And she's like, oh, let's put my baggage in the trunk. And I was like, no, it's kind of messy. Like, I have something going on and like it's just better if we put it in the back of my seat. And she's like, no, I want to see it. So I open my trunk and she's like, oh my gosh, you're so messy. And I'm like, yeah, that's because I have a life. Majority of the time, like, the schedule I had, like, is crazy, okay? So most of my coworkers and I, like, we're dead, okay? We barely even have time to do our laundry, all right? So I'm sorry I can't always keep my car clean. I think it would be nice to take you to Santa Monica, just show you a little around, and there's this place and like you can get drinks. It's like Italian food and it's right on the beach. So we get there and we didn't make a reservation, but luckily they took us and they were pretty busy because it's a popular place. And before we went in, she's like, ugh, does LA smell like this everywhere? And I was like, yeah. And like there's like poop on the ground. People don't pick up after their animals, or sometimes there's a lot of stray animals and they just go. And it also depends on where you go. And mostly Santa Monica is heavily with people, and so we get in. And I took her to this place, very nice upscale place, because I know she's bougie, all right? I'm gonna say it, she bougie, all right? And she's like, oh my God, it's so loud in here. If you make it work, you can hear each other, okay? So, I mean, I think in most restaurants, they're pretty noisy anyways. So we order and she's like, you know what? You wanna eat near the water? Like go outside, and like, I don't wanna eat here. And I was like, you sure? You sure you wanna? And she's like, yeah, let's do it. I was like, okay, because like, also when we got into the restaurant, they're like, oh, you're gonna have to wait a little bit because we're trying to clean up a table. And then she's like, okay, what about this area, which is empty? And it's just like, it's a different section of the restaurant. And I know some sections of the restaurant, like they have to have staff for that, and they didn't. And they're like, well, we can't really put you here because we don't have anybody covering this area. Don't worry, we have. And she was just being impatient. The hostess, like, they were being nice enough to take us because they're like, do you have a reservation? We're like, no, you know, we already ordered. And she's like, you want to, like, waiting last minute to basically leave. And I'm like, okay, well, we're gonna have to tell the server that they're gonna have to pack up our food. So I finally get the server, and they're like, really, you wanna pack it up? Because like, and they pack it up for us, and it was just, it took us like 40 minutes to get here, and I'm like really hungry. We're like leaving, and then she goes to the hostess and she's like, it's too noisy in here. Y'all need to like basically do something about it. And I was like just so rude. And I was like, and I had band rehearsal every day, and I was also working. So 2 days later I said, okay, yeah, let's meet up. Got home at like later than I thought. We were supposed to meet at like 7, but I didn't get home till 6:30. I needed to take a shower and get ready. And I was like, oh, sorry, can, you know, we push it a little back? So that part was my fault. And I said, okay, so I picked her up. and I did my hair. I put hairspray in it, and then she got into the car and she's like, oh my gosh, it smells so bad in here. I said, oh, that's my hairspray. She's like, oh, it's so bad. You need to like roll down the window. I was like, and I said, okay, where do you want to go? And she's like, Beverly Hills. I'm like, okay, but is there like a place you want to go to? Like, you know, you had time to look up a restaurant. She's like, no, I just want to go there. I'm sure we'll find something. In Los Angeles, you can't do that because you can end up in the wrong place, wrong time. It doesn't matter where you are, okay? You could get mugged. We got to Beverly Hills. I'm like, okay, like there are restaurants here. And it was like about like 9:30, so a lot of them were closing soon. She's like, okay, let's go to the Brazilian place. Now, most people who know about Brazilian restaurants here in America, it's all meat. And apparently, according to her, she doesn't eat meat here in America because she thinks that there's something wrong with it. Maybe, but, and then she went in and she's like, can I see the menu? And they gave her the menu. And they were about to seat us, and she's like, no, we can't eat here. I'm like, why, what's the issue? She's like, it's meat. And I was like, yeah, so? And she's like, I don't eat meat here in America. There's something like wrong with it. And I'm like, okay, but they have like other stuff, like, you know, vegetables. And she's like, no, we're not going here. And like the hostess is like, and I'm like, okay, where do you want to go? And she's like, someplace nice. And I'm like, bruh, everything's closing. So I found like an Italian place. We tried to go there and they're like, oh, we're actually closing. So then we found this Israeli place, and then she's like, oh, let's go here. And she's like, isn't it funny like how we ended up here, like, and it's Israeli, like God wanted us to be here. And I'm like, bruh, I'm hungry. I haven't eaten since lunch. All right. I was like kind of getting irritated, you know, I'll be honest, I get hangry, but I was really trying not to show it. And I'm like, dude, we went to like 2 other restaurants and like, it's like 10 o'clock. Everything's closing. And I'm like, yeah. So we got our food. It was really good. And I'm like really tired, you know? So, and then get in the car and she wanted to go to the gas station to pick up water. I was like, okay, fine. Get back in the car, and I'm like, I'm really tired, okay? You know, she's like, Angel, you're not like you used to be when you were in college. Yeah, because like my job changed me, and like also like I'm really tired, like I worked today. And she's like, yeah, but you're not fun anymore. And I was like, I'm like, yeah, people change. I started getting like really irritated, losing my patience at this point. What do you want me to say? She's like, yeah, let's meet up again. Like, you want to meet up Thursday? And I was like, okay, yeah, sure. Like, why not? Let's meet up at Thursday. So Thursday comes around, and I guess the night before she messaged me, but I went to bed early because I had rehearsal. I was tired, I had work. I didn't message her till the morning, okay? It was like 10 o'clock. The message was, when do you want to meet up? And I was like, oh, you want to meet up at like 11 or 12? Because I told her I had a concert the next day and I had to rehearse. I did tell her this beforehand in the messages prior. And she's like, oh no, I can't because I have to figure out, I'm trying to figure out how to pay my tuition and it's like due today. And I'm like, okay. And so she was asking me help on how to get her tuition. She didn't have money in her US bank account and she was just trying to get her father to wire it. And I'm like, yeah, well, if it's over a certain amount of money, it's not gonna receive for another 3 to 4 business days minimum. And she's like, no. And I'm like, girl, you should have done that last week. And I was trying to explain it to her and she's like, no, we can't meet at 11. I think she said if we could meet up at 1, and I was like, I really can't because like I was explaining to her like I can't, I have a concert tomorrow and I'm trying to get ready. I have to rehearse and I'm kind of, you know, stressing out, all right? And I'm like trying to get things prepared. I have to go do errands and just like pick up my outfit, all this stuff. And she's like, BS, you're trying to like not hang out with me. And B, you need to understand. If we go to, because she wanted to go to somewhere in Hollywood, I said, if we go there, it takes half an hour to an hour to just get there. And then you'll want to do whatever activity for 2 to 3 hours. And then minimum, come back, which is in rush hour, which is another over an hour. I'm just explaining this to her. You don't want to hang out with me. I knew you were different. And I'm like, girl, I have a life. I said, you should have done your research. You go, I don't have time for this. And then she's like, oh, can you also drop me off at Universal Studios so I can meet up with my friend? And I said, no, I have rehearsal and I have to get ready for a concert tomorrow. No, I don't have time for this. Then she starts like voice messaging me and through Messenger. And then she was like praying in tongues and praying against me and using scripture. I'm like, what is with the friends that are using scripture against me? But no, I have all the recordings still. I have the whole shebang still. And I was telling my mom, I was telling my very close friend, and they're like, you have no obligation to meet up with her, and you have no obligation to drop her off. Like, no, you have a life. She is not your priority. And my mom was like, no, cut her off. I cut her off. People think she's a princess, and she kind of is. She is well off in her country. She does get what she wants. Those are my stories with toxic people. So I just hope you enjoy this video. I hope you find it helpful, useful, or if you just enjoy story time, that's great. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you in a week or two. Bye.